Hi friends, Mindy here. Today I'm going to be sewing in the signatures for my journal for Bythewell4god's Authentic Faith. And I am showing you here the paper that I'm going to be using. So you have already seen I pulled some of the deli paper that I did some jelly prints on. I have this vintage music paper. I have some craft dot grid paper. Of course, I have some Bythewell4god pattern paper, and then a couple pieces of the Bristol Vellum Smooth. So I'm just going to start by folding all of these papers and kind of getting them down to the size that I want for my journal. I'm not measuring them. I want them to be roughly the same size, but I really kind of like all of the difference in textures and sizes, and I like some being taller than others and some being thinner. And so I'm just kind of doing a rough estimate when I'm tearing these off. So I am just going to use my ruler here just to try to get, straightish edges, and just tearing off some of the, they're not exactly the same height and everything, and that's totally fine. So this music paper is actually pretty big, so I'm going to have to tear this one down quite a bit. If you saw my setup video for the journal cover, this is the same music paper that I included on the cover, not that you can see it under all of the paint and everything, but and by the way, if you did watch that video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate that. I know that was a longer video so that I couldn't get these signatures sewn in there. I just felt like it would be too long of a video, so I decided to split it up. So that's what we're doing today, are the signatures for this journal. I am doing 2 signatures, and it's not going to be a ton of pages, but there's going to be essentially 4 or 5, depending on if you count the deli paper, pages in each, but that is basically 20 sides per signature that I can work on. So I will have plenty of room to work through this devotional, not counting all of the pockets and all of those other things that I will add in along the way. So I'm not worried about space, but I wanted it to be in 2 separate signatures just because of the width of the spine, which is about 1.5 inches, and just to make sure that I have room to really let the signatures kind of grow as I add all of those other fun things from Bythewell in my signature. So you can see here, I'm still just trimming these down. These are going to end up actually being 2 different sizes, which is fine because they're going to be in different signatures. And again, I like the variety. I did try to keep the treble clef sign on each of those pages. That was just that's just me. I just wanted that on there, but you certainly can just tear whatever. I do need to cut these down. My original idea was to sort of glue these papers together and make them, a page that's 10 inches long, sort of folded in half. And so that's kind of what I'm doing here. There's going to be this one section that sort of overlaps, and this is going to be the part that goes into the signature that gets stitched in. And originally I was thinking that I would either glue that down or glue it sort of top and bottom to make a pocket that you could use to slide it in. And in the end, what I decided to do is wait on the gluing, and as I'm working through the journal, if I want to glue down, I can create a pocket that way. If I want to just glue the whole thing flat, I can do that. If I want to add something to like the little flap part, I can certainly do that as well. So for right now, I just feel like this is going to give me more options to leave it loose. So I'm just arranging my papers here. They're not going to be even in the same order for each signature, and that's fine too. I like the variety, just kind of whatever felt the right way. This deli paper is a little bit too long, but I imagine that I will be tearing some of that off or folding it or whatever. So I just left it for now, and I will always, I can always trim it down later to the size that I want it. And I decided to keep a little bit more of this footage in than I normally do because I have not done a signature like this in a while where I'm actually sewing in the signatures. The last couple journals that I've done have been the twine binding, and so I thought I would kind of take you through how I sew in signatures, especially when I have more than one. Usually if I just have one, I eyeball it. I don't worry about, having everything evenly spaced. But when I have 2, I want my stitches to line up on the outside. So I'm going to create a little template so that I can make sure that my holes get punched in the right place. So I created one that's the exact size of my spine, and I'm going to measure it so that there's 3 equal sections because I have 2 signatures. And I'm indicating on the top of this that this is the top because I want to make sure that I line everything up. And then I'm just going down with the measurements, making some dots. And then this is one way that you can kind of measure and get everything equally spaced. But for me, I like them to be a little, like the middle stitch to be just a little bit longer if that makes sense. So I created my little dots on there. I'm just running my ruler and making some lines, and then you can kind of see like the peaks and valleys of where I had folded this middle section. I'm just drawing a line across, and then I'm going to scoot about 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch further down, just to make those just a little bit different. And I am making them kind of the same distance from top to bottom on here. And then everywhere that these lines intersect, that's where I'm going to be punching my holes. So I am going to use a heavy duty awl, and even with all the layers of this cover, it works just fine. I'm going to be punching into a foam. You could do this into an old book. You could do it into like the gutter of a book, or if you still have a phone book around or something like that, a magazine, even if it's, just to protect your work surface. And but for the actual signatures, what I'm going to first make sure I have everything kind of clipped in place. It's just easier than letting it slide around. So I have these little clips. I get asked about them all the time. I got them in my Kroger grocery store in the automotive area, but you can get some very similar ones at Dollar Tree. I've had these for years, and they work great. They're nice and strong, hold everything in place. And so I'm just going to put like one on either side, like the top of one and the bottom of the other. And this is a book cradle that's going to allow me to keep it kind of folded and punched down. If you don't have this, you can, again, just use an old book, open it up to the middle and punch down into the gutter, and it will work. But what I did is I folded on that first line. So this is going to be my first signature. And whenever I'm doing this, it's also important to kind of keep them in order. So I'm punching my 3 holes and making sure that I'm putting the top of that template at the top of each signature. And I did that for both. I just folded it on the line that needed to be cut and punched those holes. And I'm going to be using this as waxed linen thread. And I happen to have this orange color that obviously doesn't get used very often in my stash. So this felt like a perfect time to use it. And I actually really like the contrast of it on the outside of my cover. So I'm going to be starting with the back stitch. So I threaded my book binding needle, and I'm going from the inside of the signature to the outside. And I'm going to leave a tail on the inside that I kind of hold with my thumb. And then I'm going to be coming in from the top hole. Whether you go top or bottom at this point, it doesn't really matter. And I'm just going to thread this through. It can be a little finicky if you do what I did, which is kind of move the paper around a little bit. But you can see easily enough to add those in. And I like working from the back to the front. I just find it easiest. So then I'm just going to pull this through, and now I'm going to go all the way down, skipping over the center. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom stitch hole, and then go out to the outside now. And then my last stitch will be kind of coming back in through the middle hole. And it's very important when you do this that you don't get that needle through the thread that's already there, because otherwise you won't be able to pull this signature tight or pull the thread tight. So I'm going to take my needle off. I'm just kind of pulling the tails through, and you can see how loose that is right there. I can stick my finger in it. So I always check this a couple of times before I actually tie this knot, and just pull it nice and tight. And make sure that each one of these tails is on either side of that long strip down the middle. And then I just tie a square knot. And you could trim this down if you want to, run the tails kind of back up underneath all of those stitches. You could tie a bow, you could do whatever. I like to leave mine long. Sometimes I go back and add things to the bottom, tie like charms or whatever on there, or beads or whatever. Or sometimes when I'm working through it, I'll decide I'm going to go ahead and trim them down, but I always kind of leave that decision until later. So, again, I'm just going to show this process again, just so you can see if you've never seen a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, that's what this is. You can also do it with 5 holes, but the 3 has always worked for me. So even on a longer or taller journal, I feel like this is just a good stitch. So again, I went from the middle to the outside, and then through that top hole down through the bottom, and then I'll come back into the middle. And I do say, like, where you have your threads hanging, it depends. If you want those threads on the outside, which I have done that before as well, then you just start the opposite way. So you start from the outside and work to the inside, and then your threads that are left over will be on the outside of your journal. And that's especially fun if you do like to hang charms and that kind of thing. Then you'll have your end pieces on the outside, if that makes sense. So it really just is kind of up to you and how you want that to look. And then I'm just gonna tie this off again, and then I'll trim this so that the things are still long, but they're the same size. And then I'm going to do a quick flip through so you can kind of see how all of these papers look together, and you'll see I have plenty of space to work through this devotional. I love the contrast of that orange against that teal. So here are the pages. That's what I was talking about with this flap. I can add paper to it. I can, you know, make a pocket on either side, do whatever. Those jelly plate prints I have in there, and then my Bristol vellum paper in there. Just a lot of mixtures of different kinds of paper. And I may add something to the inside covers, but I haven't decided. For right now, I like them, so they will stay like that. So if you like this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye.